and you have to be a certain type or a certain look. And with comedy, you don't have that aspect to it. You can be who you are. And I think that that's a really big plus for anyone that wants that outlet. But it takes a lot of bravery to do comedy, and that takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Sound?
Bite me. Quick sound bite.
Bite me.
Bite me, bite me, bite me, bite.
Okay, I'll bite.
Hi, I'm great. Great, doing good. How are you doing? I feel like I've been teaching for like 1,000 years. I started teaching almost when I started doing comedy. So that was like, I did do comedy in Chicago, but it was primarily focused on stand-up and doing theater and film. So I only dabbled. I was doing improv a lot. And so I did a little stand-up in Chicago, but not a lot. I was there when a lot of clubs were closing. The 80s boom had killed a lot of clubs in the 2000s, and they just weren't making a big comeback yet. So I was focusing on other stuff. And when I came back to Orlando and then the Tampa area, the Tampa Improv opened. And then I started getting back into it because I started working there in the box office. Then I got into teaching theater, and I was always working with kids, and I always kind of knew I wanted to teach theater, but it was just kind of something that was there, and I figured I would just do it one day. There's a lot of teachers in my family. But I am a theater teacher in high school. I started out at one school where I was an army of one, and now I work at a performing arts magnet. So these kids are a little bit more serious. They're auditioning for, programs, getting in places like Carnegie Mellon and full scholarships to all kinds of schools. And so it's really cool. Much more competitive environment. We do a lot more shows than a typical high school. We do 3 or 4 major shows in the season, and then they have cabarets and dances, and they travel a lot. We go to New York for Broadway. We go to SETC auditions, which are always in a different state. They do competitions. It's just go kind of a job. So I mean, that's why people will see me on the road doing stand-up, and I'll see some of my friends and they're like, "How are you awake right now?" I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm awake because I get up at 5 something in the morning during the week. Lots of Starbucks. Caffeine is my religion. So I go to Starbucks. My kids know to bribe me. The smart kids know what my Starbucks order is, and that's how it works. Yeah, I don't want your apple. I want a tall, non-fat latte, extra hot light foam. That's better. Right now, you've got teachers that, are leaving in droves because they're tired of not being able to pay their bills and working so many hours. And theater teachers, any elective type teacher, like a band teacher and a theater teacher, even football coaches, they work so many hours off the clock that it's a lot. A typical day for us is from class starts at 7:10 in the morning, and we're there till 4 or 5 o'clock with rehearsals, but we still get a salary. And so we're done getting paid at like 2:30, but we're still there. And then sometimes there's night events. Right. We're not getting paid for those. So we have performances, open houses, discovery nights, you name it. There's always something going on in the evening. And each show we do has 3 performances and a tech week. And that's the same at every high school, not just a magnet program. So and you've got band concerts and everything else that's all off the clock, and people don't think that, and they're like, you have summers off, and you're like, we don't get paid during the summer, which is why a lot of us take training during the summer so we can get some kind of stipend, or we all have different other jobs. So you have to love what you teach and love the kids to put up with all the BS, but a lot of people are getting tired of the BS. I love doing a show, like a theater show. I've done theater here in the area and done plays and stuff. But every creative thing is so different, and it pulls from a different part of my creative process. I think that's kind of what keeps me going, is that I'm not just all the apples are in one basket. And I encourage, comedians and everybody else, don't just do this one thing. Do all these other things. I took a great workshop with Michael Kushner, who does a lot of headshots and things for people on Broadway, and he's also a performer. And he's all about being a multi-hyphenate and being with this more than one thing. Be an actor, a photographer, a web designer, a teacher, a creator. Something so that you always have all these multiple outlets for yourself. And I think if people found a lot during the lockdown that was necessary to not only save your sanity but create an income. And for me, I've always just kind of found other different ways to be creative. I also like writing. I like, whatever it is that keeps me going. And I'm very fortunate that I've been able to do that. I don't have children of my own. So, I don't have that other thing that takes up a lot of people's time, that other obligation. I would usually probably say teacher, because if you say you're a comedian, the first thing they say is, yeah, or tell me a joke.
Right.
Which is a horror. Yeah, so it kind of depends on the company and where I'm at. I am more of an introvert than a lot of other people are. I'm kind of an introvert with extrovert tendencies. So there's times I really just don't want to engage in shenanigans. I'm just not in the mood.
I'm with you.
I got to drive for 2 hours now. I got to go. Yeah. I did the late nights and all that stuff with the friends, and I just kind of got it out of my system.
God, it must have.
Most of the time when I was there, it was the post-drug period where everybody had seen the dangers of drugs and what it had done to the great amount of talent.
Okay.
And when I was there, Chris Farley passed away. Yeah, and he had been at a Christmas party. And he had been at a Christmas party at SNL the night before and was definitely having fun.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people were very concerned about him and worried about him. Yeah. But I remember the following time I had a class with my director. He gave us a big lecture on the dangers of drugs and how many talented people they had seen deal with this. And, everybody was in mourning, of course, because he was so well liked and loved. But a lot of it was that. And I had Del Close as an instructor at the Improv Olympic. And I remember at one point he had rolled up his sleeves. And if you don't know who Del Close is, he's one of the fathers of improv in Chicago. And quite a character, a big, hippie rebel type, but a genius nonetheless. And I'm privileged that I got to have class with him. But at one point he rolled up his sleeves and you could see clearly the track marks on his arms. And he didn't hide it.
Right.
And, he, was in recovery and everything, of course, but it was something that was not hidden, like the dangers of it and the people that had to deal with it. And funny story about Del, you like funny stories. So when he passed away, he willed his skull to the Goodman Theater to be used in any productions of Hamlet.
Nice.
Because they have that famous scene, Rorik, I knew him well, and he holds up his skull. They used it. It's on display and it's there. And I'm like, yeah, that's my teacher. Yes. And when I was there, the people on the main stage were amazing. They were like Rachel Dratch, Tina Fey, Horatio Sands. Stephanie Weir was killing it over at the Improv Olympic. And she went on to do, I think she did Mad TV. But they were just, the thing about them is that I was never intimidated by them. They were kind, approachable, nice people, and you wanted them all to do well. Yeah. When they got the call to go to Saturday Night Live or whatever, you were happy for them. There was no one going, ugh, I hope they suck. I hope they fail. Nobody does that because a lot of them had been there already years before me. Right. And a lot of them had already done the troupe on the road. So very happy for them. Very nice people. I follow them on Twitter and give them shouts outs and stuff on Instagram. And they're just great. Wanda was amazing. I got to work with a lot of folks at the Improv because I got to host shows there a lot. Wanda was amazing to work with. And I learned a lot from her. And primarily, I kind of learned a lot from the women I worked with.
Sure.
More, of course, than the guys, because you want to see, you know, how they hold their own on stage. But DL Hugley is someone else that I saw and I got to open for, and he was very nice. Who's the guy, the comic with all the puppets? Jeff
Dunham. Jeff Dunham. Yeah.
Jeff Dunham. And he had he sends the puppets ahead of time in like these metal boxes.
Yes. Through
shipping to make sure they get there in time for his show. And so I was in the box office doing whatever at the time. And they, unbeknownst to me, he was around the corner hiding. And he started having them argue in the shipping containers, the puppets. And he was full on doing all the voices. And he'd gotten my name already. So they were talking about me. And it was like the jalapeno guy and the old man arguing about me and my appearance. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that's funny.
PG-13, but you know, my appearance and, you know, and who was going to take me out and stuff like that. And it was so funny. But it really startled me for a minute until I caught on that obviously he's behind the corner. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot. And we got along like peas and carrots after that. It was so funny, but he was very nice. He didn't really have an opener. He just, you know, kind of goes on stage, but he was so The difference is that today's actors can't memorize anything. They have their memorization skills are very, very tough because they're used to, their attention span is much shorter.
Yeah. And
they're used to having instant information and tiny bits of information at a time, like texting and social media. So that when you give them a script, the expectation that they will have something memorized for you, you know, you have to really, I found it at my old school, I had to give them extra time to have things memorized, or I had to simplify some of the text that I was giving out as time wore on, or relax some of the requirements for memorization. Now that I'm at a performing arts magnet, we kind of have to instill that discipline because that's what they're going to need in the real world if they go to a college program, which is essentially what we're preparing most of them for, to meet those standards. So it's a little different. We have to be a little more hard on them knowing that, but it is definitely a skill that I have seen gone the wayside. And so that's a little scary. And they're also so used to devices. Eye contact is something we're always working on, especially with, you know, even when they're doing cold readings, they want to hold it like they hold their phone, you know, like looking down all the time. I'm like, you have to look up, And that even comes into play when we do tech run throughs for lighting design. The lighting designers are always like, you have to look up, you need to look up. I'm one of those people where it's not hard for me to memorize. Okay. It comes very easily. I could go even into like a commercial audition and look at the piece and have it down and not have to look at anything. And I just don't have a problem. And I do it very well in the car. So when I'm in a play, I just sit there and say the words out loud in my car, and I've got them in time for rehearsal. It's not a problem. The older I get, the harder it has become. I will say that much. But it's harder for everyone depending on where they're at with it. But I have noticed a big change in my students of late and having to be able to do that. So we do different exercises. We do something where their peers will give them a grade on memorization technique as like an assignment. So they'll say each other's monologues to each other. And then they'll grade them on a scale of how many words they got right or wrong as practice. And we also do dry runs of everything before they get a performance run. So that's another way. I have them, a good technique is to write down your monologue 3 times, because sometimes just writing it down a few times gets in here. I also have them write them line by line as a sentence and number the sentence. And then under each line, give each sentence, break them down into like actions. So they have an intention for each of those thoughts. And that way, a lot of times they memorize them that way too. So there's different things you can do. Sometimes you can record them. And so if people have a musical inclination, if they hear themselves say the words, it helps them memorize. I had to work all day with Brad Pitt. It was horrible.
He's
so beautiful. Like, you can't take your eyes off of him, whether you like him or not, whether he's your type or not. And he's not really my type. I tend to like the Clooney, right? The tall, dark. And I couldn't stop looking at him. He's like a magnet.
Okay.
I will say, I was in the scene where they're at, and I had some lines, most of which got cut out, but I wound up being a glorified extra, which is fine because you go for the experience and it's fun. But I was still in a Steven Soderbergh film, so I was happy. But I was in front of them in the racetrack scene. So they had to keep resetting it, and they gave us hot dogs and like crap all day to eat to keep us interested. But he was sitting with his co-stars, and when he wasn't doing that, he was talking to a lot of older people that were on set that looked like retirees and stuff. And he was so kind to them. He was so nice and genuinely interested in them. Like, so, you're from New York and now you're in Florida. That's great. Well, what brought you down here? Like, he couldn't have been nicer. Wow. And I was just very impressed with him. Okay. Yeah. And they did their scene, over and over different ways and reset it. And he was very professional, and they would goof around and stuff. And every once in a while he would say something to me or whoever, next to me. And I would tease him because I would just, this is the same thing I did on sets before in Chicago. And I would just turn around and go, oh God, we have to do this again. Can you get it right? And he would laugh and just be, I'm sorry. We made us. Yeah. And we would tease because that was his relationship with everybody else, was just very good natured. And so you feel open to do that, and it was the same on the set of like ER. When I did that, ER was everyone's very open. You didn't feel like, a lot of people are saying about Leah Michele right now on the set of Glee. She was you couldn't talk to her. She was precious. You didn't get that on, those kind of sets. People were very open to talking to everybody. They weren't treating anyone any different, like their crap didn't stink. So I would have taken either or. And you'll love this. I did 2 episodes of ER and then Ocean's 11. And all those times Clooney was never on set. Yes, really.
Dang it.
It's very upsetting. And I actually wound up in Vegas, and they were still shooting Ocean's 11 this time they were at the Bellagio. But I was so bummed out. The first thing that happened when I got on set to ER, they give you the sheet for the day, and it shows all the players that are there for the day, and there's no Clooney. And I was just like, oh, and then you could only do the show once or twice. Probably my biggest influence as far as comedians would be old school, like Joan Rivers, Bette Midler, that style. I love those early like setup punch. I got to meet Joan Rivers, and she was really cool. She gave me advice. She said comedy is very tough on women. She wasn't wrong. Yeah. It's hard to be a headliner, to try to be a headliner. I still fight to be a headliner a lot. It is frustrating when you know that they just keep putting men primarily in those things, and they want a well-rounded show. So they like to put a women in the middle. And I know it's not personal, but after a while you start to feel like, come on, really? Yeah. But I'm not a TikTok star.
Don't do TikTok.
So it's just kind of tough. I'm trying to work more on TikTok videos, but my brain doesn't go there. I know my friend Mike Rivera has been doing really well, making lots of videos lately. And I'm just like, how did you do all this? There's no time in my day, for all of that. But I get it. But it's I definitely loved Joan. I read her book, Enter Talking, when I was young, and I immediately said, this I should do this. I should do comedy. This sounds like it's right for me. I like comedy versus other mediums because you're in control of it. And I think being a Leo, we like that control. So you're the one in charge of the material, your look, where you're going to go, when you're going to go. There's a lot of control to it. The thing you can't always control is, getting the booking, right? You can't always control that, but you can control a lot of it. And when you get into the business, even if it's just theater, you can't control whether you're going to get the part. You can't control whether you're going to keep working. You can't control where you're going to live necessarily.
Right.
And there's a lot of that that gets hard, and you have to be a certain type or a certain look. And with comedy, you don't have that aspect to it. You can be who you are. And I think that that's a really big plus for anyone that wants that outlet. But it takes a lot of bravery to do comedy, and that takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Like, follow, subscribe.